drag tire.
No.
No, we haven't talked about anything since last week, which means we're live right now. So let's do. I feel like me drinking a Bud Light seltzer is sort of represents RC right now. It's kind of like the light version of RC because nothing's really happening. Of course, light. Yeah, we're all light. Light on news, light on content. That's what we should have called this. RC Babble Light.
Derek, any craft beer bona fides that you had have gone out the window, I think, with that drink you got there.
Yeah.
All your beer people just turned it off.
No, I turned off all my beer people. F you. Welcome to the show 2 weeks in a row, which is probably a surprise to everybody here because it hasn't happened consecutively. Let me shut off my ring unless anybody wants to know when someone's motion at my door.
Hey, someone drove past your house.
Yeah, believe me, that's exactly what happens. Where was I? Oh, we're on a show. Sometimes it's every week and sometimes it's not. One of the good things is that you can subscribe to our magazine and sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. Two, also. Therefore.
That's a bad sales pitch. You always get it. If you buy the hat, you get all the subscription things too. Don't forget that. Get the hat.
Yeah, that just reminds me. I still haven't posted a link to a hat. Somebody sent me a message.
It was me. I wanted to buy a hat to support my homie, and I had to go dig in.
You're probably going to get a refund. But
No,
the other guy, somebody else bought one, but he never sent me his address, and I meant to tell him. And funny enough, I got a letter probably months ago because I moved.
A letter?
And it was a money order because the guy was having electronic identity issues. Mm-hmm. So he sent me more than the subscription to the magazine. But can you guess the problem?
You don't have a way to refund him?
Well, one.
Or you don't have his address to send him stuff to.
Well, two, I don't have a computer to send them something to read the magazine. Like, you would need to download the magazine. It's a digital magazine. You'd be surprised how many in this day and age don't read that this is a digital-only magazine that you have to download, because I have to deal with this on a daily of people saying, I didn't get anything. And I'm like, you get it immediately. But that's nothing at my house. It's at your house. It's digital.
So are they confused at all when you say that they get it immediately? Do they think it's like a Wile E. Coyote kind of Acme thing where like they hit, subscribe, and then they go to the mailbox and like a truck comes to a skid, hands them the thing?
I think that's what they expect. Amazon Prime robots are going to show up and just drop off their stack of magazines like the old days.
Hey, Prime isn't as fast as it used to be either, but
all of it.
I understand nobody reads. I barely read. So
if everybody read, guys like me wouldn't have jobs in this industry. So keep not reading, everybody. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and coming from someone that makes stuff to read, thanks for nothing. Yeah.
That's great.
We have a topic today. The first topic was that we asked each other what new came out in RC, and the answer was kind of nothing.
Other than came out the new speed control a couple months ago, XR8 Pro is very awesome. If you're an ACO,
that's awesome.
That was it. That's all I had.
And then we talked about how Traxxas is like doing a slow strip tease of their drag slash,
and it's making me angry, physically angry. Every time I see it, it just makes me more upset that I can't see the whole damn car already. It's been too much build up. Now I'm not going to like it automatically.
I don't think it's going to be something super crazy, but P liked it because it's better than doing a knobby tire tease or something like that.
I feel like going from you don't know what's happening and then the next day you know everything. That's the best. But if you're going to do a tease, I like the idea of releasing entire parts of it as opposed to here's a silhouette, here's a cloud of dust, here's a close-up of a nut. Like that, I don't like that.
By the way, Traxxas did a silhouette to start, so
and a picture of the tire.
Yeah, but it got better from there. I mean, it's better than a month of nothing but puffs of dust and
right.
It was only a week. That's fine.
But anyway, it's time to release it. So, which also sparked our conversation of what we were going to try to figure out what to talk about today, because 2 weeks in a row is a lot of stress on coming up with topics, especially when nothing is coming out.
You suck. Turn this on. I feel like this is referring to the show.
2 parts of that. Yes. We suck. You get turned on. A couple of people in here, I feel that way. We're talking about electric nanny aids. And I think we've discussed this before. Pretty much we probably discussed everything. We've done this 40 times.
E-crutches.
And e-crutches is nice. I'm adjusting my volume here. The topic came about because Traxxas released a diagram of their stability management.
If you didn't know, Traxxas has something called Traxxas Stability Management, TSM, and it makes your car easier to drive, essentially. Like if you're bad at driving, you put TSM on and you're good at driving.
Right. And Spectrum has active vehicle control. And I don't know what Team Associated calls theirs, but the Team Associated's ready-to-run receiver has a built-in gyro. Yep. So this is not an uncommon thing.
No.
And you can get standalone devices that plug in and do this same task as well.
Right.
Yeah, and those have been around for a very long time as well. You can use a helicopter gyro. In fact, I still have an HPI D-Box, which is a Futaba tail rotor gyro, just with a different decal on it.
What'd you call me?
Yeah, D-Box. Yeah. So, yes, not new technology. Much better than they used to be. I will tell my quick story before we talk about the Traxxas version and the confusion and why you either love them or hate them. The first time I did a article on this, it was with the Spectrum version, and they had it in their buggy thing. I forget what it was called.
They had it in the Glamis, the Glamis, the Helix, whatever the rally car was called.
It was more the Glamis thing. And we went to Revelation, 3S pack in it, 2-wheel drive, hard tires. Undrivable without it on, and then you can clear a triple with it on. And so it was a night and day thing. And the engineer at the time, and I can't remember who it was, basically said this technology will allow us to come out with cars that we couldn't before because they were undrivable. And that really summed it up, is that a 60-mile-an-hour 2-wheel drive buggy on loose dirt is not drivable. And then turning it on basically made it to be able to clear a triple like an A-scale car. So
it's drivable. It's just not any fun, and you have to be careful and like take care, if you will, like have some self-control. And these e-crutches, you could take away all your self-control. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but at that day I was with Adam Drake, and he struggled to get the car around without it too. I mean, a little better than most. I'd let other people drive it with and without. So it was a giant difference. And then we tried the Pro version in his buggy, where you can dial down and change parameters. So it's not just, if you're a good enough driver, a gyro will basically make you push in a corner if you know how to drive, because you're going to start trying to do stuff that it's going to do for you. And if it's on too much, it just washes the car out and you can't turn. So this allowed you to dial what it was doing out. You can dial it that it was only acting throttle, a little less steering. And on his buggy, which was set up for the track, for me, did help me. But the biggest thing I saw was a rut that when you went through it would chuck the car sideways, no matter how much you anticipated it. But when you had it on, don't hit your screwdriver around, it went through the rut with like it wasn't there. So there's a huge advantage, and it didn't show, you couldn't tell it was on, but when the car reacts, there's no way for you to react the same speed as the car is reacting. So it's a giant, whoever says that it's not is lying to you in every fashion advantage. And I think at every skill level when it's tuned correctly, because again, you have a disconnect from the car, and you're reacting to the car, and when that thing's on there, it is now reacting at the speed of light. So that's a giant difference. So in racing, which we will discuss, it's a controversial topic. Just like I always relate to Formula One that went through periods of traction control and not. But it also, that's probably why we have great traction control, because Formula One did it. But back to the Traxxas, they released something that Pete was mad because it required somebody to read. and somewhat understand what the what it meant. And Pete can now describe the confusion because I was slightly confused at the press release myself, but read the graph and understood what it was saying.
Pictures.
Pete.
Well, yeah, and for some, I don't begrudge anyone's opinion of an electronic, stability system and whether or not they want to use one. Totally fine. Like what you like, enjoy what you like. Don't enjoy what you don't enjoy. Totally fine. Don't care about that. What is frustrating is when people don't want to take the time to understand something before they announce that it's the worst thing in the world. You should try to know what you're talking about before you announce it's the worst thing in the world or the best. But the basic thing, like Charlie mentioned, is Traxxas stability management, which is essentially a gyro. I think active vehicle control for Spectrum also works with a traction control component. The TSM for Traxxas is strictly steering. It does not eliminate wheel spin. If you have TSM on with a Traxxas car and you pin the throttle and you don't have enough traction, it'll spin the rear tires. The TSM doesn't do anything with that. It just corrects if the car gets sideways. And ordinarily, you turn that up and down at the transmitter. I think I have a transmitter here. Yes, I do. With the multifunction knob. And if you turn the knob all the way counterclockwise, like the volume knob, the TSM is off. But because that's up to the driver and they can turn it back up and no one knows, they've got drag race mode on the drag slash, which allows you to disable the TSM at the receiver. So the driver cannot do it from the radio. Once drag race mode is on, TSM is off on the throttle side, and it cannot be re-enabled unless you take off the body and go back into the receiver box and turn the drag mode off. And I did check with Traxxas when you're in drag mode, the LED on the receiver, I don't know if it stays on solid or it blinks, but it does something to say, yes, drag race mode is enabled, or no, it's not enabled. This car has the ability to have TSM if the driver turns it up at the transmitter. So at the tech station, if you're racing, they can say, yep, you have your drag race mode on, TSM is off. In the drag race mode, TSM does work on the brake side. So after you cross the finish line, the car doesn't just, fishtail because you have to jump on the brakes real hard. But on the throttle side, no TSM. It's entirely up to you to get the car to go straight when you're in drag race mode. Now, when this was announced at the Velocity page and elsewhere, people were just, the drag race guys were like, you can't use it. Nope. There's a rule. You cannot have TSM. And it's like, well, the drag race mode turns off the TSM at the receiver. So that should take care of that issue so you can still race and not have it. And they're like, nope. If it says TSM on the receiver, you can't run it. And like, well, is the rule about having letters on the receiver or is it about having a capability? And that was where the frustration was in the idea that we can't change that rule. That rule can never be changed, and also the idea that certainly a lot of people are probably going to buy the drag slash. It certainly looks nice with the body on. A lot of people will, I imagine, would get it just to have fun going up and down the street, never go to an organized race. The ones who might say
their Traxxas collection.
Yeah, the ones who might say, hey, I heard they actually race these things the next town over. Let's check it out. There's no way they're going to show up and be told, hey, you can race, but you got to take your receiver out. No way they're going to do that. They're just like, okay, bye. It's not going to happen.
Hopefully, the dude who's in charge can read 3 sentences and understand what this new feature is and allow people to race with their TSM mark.
Just use the feature, and then they won't have it. And better yet, if I was running a race program, I'd say, yeah, you can turn it off to run, use the drag race mode to run in these classes, or we have a drag slash class, or just an open class where you can run a stability system so that you can get down the track straighter. And that's the beginner class, whatever they want to call it. And that's allowed there. So you decide what you want to do. And we have a place for you to race. Likewise, a kid who shows up with a Bandit or a Vetera, not Vetera, the latest Arma car, that isn't a drag thing at all. But you want to go down the strip and see if you can beat somebody? There's a way to do it. Welcome. That's how it should be. That's how any racing should be. Dirt track, anything. Not just drag
if you're not doing it that way and your club runs races that way and you see them turn someone away and don't let them run on the track because they got the wrong car, talk to them. Make sure they understand that this hobby needs more people and for us to all have fun.
Maybe your club is about we wanted to just be 10 guys who are into the highest end stuff. We don't care about growing. That's also fine. Not for me, but if that's how you want to run it, great. But if you do want to get more entry fee money to grow your club and have a bigger pizza party at the end of the season and grow the local scenes, there's more people, more cars, all that stuff. Yeah, you should welcome everyone.
All these manufacturers are more likely to give your club prizes if they see that you're welcoming new people to the hobby and stuff.
Pizza?
Yeah. So if you don't like the idea of a drag race, well, that's totally, I'm not against that, but just understand it before you decide if you don't like it or not. Because as far as I can see, I can't see a reason why you would not want to use this. One person said, well, once the car is teched, they could just turn that back on. I'm like, well, if you're running a program so that once a car gets teched in the morning, it's never looked at again, they can change anything on the car. Like it's not limited to just at the receiver.
I mean, so the way most tech works is you get your car checked right before you run it, and you have to stay in an area of the track before you can go run the car. You can't take the car back to the pits without going back through tech. I mean, that's even the drag race guys picked up on this basic concept of tech things. So I don't mean that the way it came out. I'm sorry.
Well, and as far as, and again, if it's got a blinky mode, if the speaking mode is blinking or whatever it does to say drag race mode is on, it takes a second just to look at the receiver. I mean, it's not like you have to do a big tech process every time.
I talked
that run looked awful straight. I feel like you had TSM on. Let me look at your car. You're going to tell in an instant. And, I'd rather not race the guy at all and then lose, but have him be disqualified. But still, it's not like, man, there's no way you'll ever know. Someone else said, well, maybe they could hack the firmware for the receiver so the speaker that doesn't. I'm like, is that a real problem? Do you think that someone's going to go through that amount of trouble? Yeah.
That's been that's my favorite RC wives' tale, is that somebody is out there taking the time and energy to break code on speed controls so that they can cheat to win toy car races. I'm not a computer expert. I know a thing or two about a thing or two. I've seen speed control code, and maybe I'm an idiot and I'm ignorant to what it takes to crack code, but that's ridiculous to me as a person who's seen a thing or two. So, I mean, I feel like that's like a terrible thing to think that we can just easily crack code and make the lights blink however we want, or cover the LED up with tape and put one in there that blinks the right way. We're going to go through all that trouble so we can cheat. Like,
good one.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably much easier to crack code than you say, because they do crack code for like major automobiles and people do it all the time. But for me, the light blinking seems kind of hard. Why wouldn't they just make a sound, like a beep when it's in the right mode, where it's like blinky mode, but when it's staging, it's beep, beep, like something, or, some noise to where you don't have to, let me look under here and see if there's light on.
No noise.
But the confusion on this thing is when what Traxxas, whoever did it may have oversight. When it's on, it's actually something's off. And that's the thing to me, is that people don't understand, is that when you say drag mode is on, the only thing that's on is stability under braking, which when I read that, I was like, oh, that's probably one of the smarter things I've seen, because I watched some of these drag races and some of them just play like breakout, and then other ones, when they go across the line, then crash into a board. So
the race goes well, the end of the race goes poorly.
Yeah, it's like when we used to do our slot car drag racing, and you would have this little fast car that went 32 feet and then smashed into a piece of wood and foam at the end. Like, oh, that was fun. Now everything's ruined.
It's like a race crash.
Yeah. So I don't know why drag racing doesn't have a longer end, whatever you want to call that.
Some of them can't. The club that I raced with, they ended with concrete curb. It was awesome. So many spectacular crashes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to add the drama of drag racing, that is awesome, and put a camera right at the end.
Now, I suppose you could argue that if you might be able to win a race because you both had to brake hard before the finish line and you were able to brake straighter, but that's two very bad drag racers in action at that point. I've
been to a lot of drag races. I've never seen anyone use their brakes on the race part of the track. Maybe they use the brakes at the end, but they won't even try to lift.
Even if you don't have to use them
on the throttle.
I guess when you lift, does it? I don't look, but maybe when you lift, it adds stability. I don't know. It was a smart idea, and it was a smart idea because if you ever raced their original drag car, that was a drag car, I think you should have won prizes just to go straight, because it didn't have it back then. And now I'm curious to put it in the drag car that I have to see if that thing will go straight now.
TSM could bring the funny car back.
Yes.
The thing was a turd.
I don't know if it was a turd. It looked cool, but it just wasn't feasible to actually go 70 miles an hour straight, which it was capable of doing. And that's some giant brass balls of Traxxas to come out with something like that, because it was aimed to someone that didn't have RC experience at all, which was crazier to me after driving it.
everywhere though.
But they did have the turn down the knob, which
They
I don't
did have
know.
a very advanced tuning for that speed control where you could do. They had staged it so that you could make it launch and all that, launch modes and all.
Well,
that.
it was a super simulation of drag racing,
It was a turd.
but it wasn't a car you could really play with. You couldn't just horse around with it. It was very. It was a funny car. I mean, you can't horse around with a real funny car either. You can't hot lap a full size funny car. It's not going to happen.
Well, that's what the drag racing has come into too. You've taken a car that's the most utility car of all time, and you've made it go in a straight line and flip over at the end of the track.
Or hit a concrete barrier. It's still kind of fun to me.
That's always good.
In forms of other racing, I would say I'm 50-50 on the use for it, because I think in beginner classes it's probably something that should be there, just so, especially on the faster classes like Nitro at this point, and I would say even touring car probably can use it to help people just as an aid. It doesn't help as much, especially if you start to learn something. The current ones that don't allow you infinite adjustment of throttle and steering are a hindrance if you can drive somewhat.
My buddy brought his UDR out to the backyard track last weekend, and it's totally stock RTR. And someone's like, "Is the TSM on?" Because we had been driving around, and everybody was having a really good time with it, looking like pros. We turned the TSM off and broke his truck in like 2 laps because it wouldn't like. We thought we knew what we were doing because we're experienced on this track. So like, there's something to be said for.
Well, if you want to make the UDR handle like it has TSM on when it doesn't, just run it on half the voltage, go half as fast. And
horse cells the way.
To Horizon's point, like, yeah, with the electronic stability systems, now you can run the hard tires that you want on a ready to run so they don't just burn off into slicks after one session of playing in a cul-de-sac, and still have the car work because you've got some electronic stability system helping you out.
Hard tires drive better on the street.
Soft rubber, we're doing it with electronics. And for me, it's all about the customer. Like, yeah, I don't think it should be a thing at for most racing. A beginner class, maybe you let them do it so they can have fun while they learn how to drive. All that stuff. The drag race mode thing we talked about. Yeah, for sure. But I don't think anyone should have to earn their way by breaking things until they learn how to drive a high. Like, come on, just
It's such a racer piss and match type of manly man thing that you can't have the little monkey inside the box help you have fun. Like, you got to have fun all by yourself. No. Super fun when the monkey inside the box is making decisions for you.
Yeah, well, for most of us, we're not that good or maybe Charlie's still good at racing. I don't know. I've only watched your backyard stuff. I'm not impressed. I can't even tell which car you're driving, to be honest. I'm making stuff up.
I'm not. When I'm videotaping, I'm not driving.
Oh, well, all right. Then you were better if you were taping and driving.
That's coming soon. Don't worry.
I think at the pro level, and I would say when this early came out that there were definitely some people cheating, whether they like to admit it or not. At that level, because it is illegal, doesn't make any sense. But believe me, I guarantee you some people were testing that during real races, especially when.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, because it wasn't. Nobody knew about it, right? Nobody knew what was going on, and if it made a giant difference,
to me, it's no different than speed controls having timing advance or those magic valve shocks that do things while they're moving. Like, which it adjusts on its own. It does things. It's fine. Like that, you should be able to maximize the technology. We race toy cars. Like, it should have the coolest tech in it. It's like a little tiny Tesla.
This guy has abs and a gyro. I know, Leo. We get it. You work out.
I have abs and no, that's not what that says. He means anti-lock braking.
Oh.
Because
you won't find too many RC guys that work.
No, there's, by the way, no RC car has anti-lock braking. They just don't. What they have is something that will pulse the brake, and if you set it up properly so that the frequency of the pulses and the depth of each pulse is matched to the available traction, it will give you better braking. But it's not like a full-size car where it's got an optical sensor reading, the teeth on the drum of the wheel and measuring that against the car's actual velocity. It doesn't work like that. It can help, but there's no anti-lock brake system where it will actually definitely prevent the wheels from locking up every time, whether you're on ice or on the pavement. It doesn't work.
ABS maximizes your braking traction while not locking them up. ABS in an RC car is basically an adjustable pole.
It's a line item on a radio that should have been removed about 25 years ago.
It causes a lot of people to call tech support because they can't get their speed controls to calibrate because the ABS is turned on. So if you're not able to calibrate your speed control, turn that crap off, stupid.
If the one thing we learned today is that if you have ABS, don't put it on and it won't make your speed control work. I did not know that.
You can turn it on after. You just can't have it before.
Because basically it's just going like this.
Right. There's a point. I used to think Futaba was the most guilty of this, but maybe it's Spectre now, or maybe it's KO. I don't know. But it's like they're at the radio manufacturer, like, what else can we make a radio do? You know, I mean, because there's basically 5 things that make sense for a radio to do, and then after that, it's just bananas stuff. Like, not only ABS, but you can adjust every facet of ABS. And what if the trigger could have 5 different ranges of servo speed, and you could control how much of the pie slice of the trigger movement would be what servo. It's just, you can't use it.
By the way, I think Jim led us on to that before, is that there is a radio or a speed control that you can set up parameters for throttle position and what it does. That's supposed to be like a fake launch system. I don't think you remember. I don't know if you were on there. Remember, Jim from Tekin was telling me that someone came up with where you just punch it and the speed control would do a set parameter of 30%, 50%, 80%, 100% or something. So I guess people can hack stuff.
Works.
Yeah, that could easily be done.
I thought that's what that. Well, anyway, the Macklin speed control is supposed to.
You want to fix that? Go back to drag racing with a brushed motor and a micro switch for a speed control. Servo just bangs into it and the car takes off.
You said the Macklin one can do programming?
I haven't sat down and looked at one. I feel like I'm failing as a tech support guy that I haven't used every one of our competitors' speed controls, but I can barely keep up with all the speed controls we have, so I don't bother. But my understanding is the Macklin has these stages that you can tune, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not against it, to be honest with you. I mean, there's it sounds cool that someone came up with that freaking idea. I just don't understand where people sit around and go, when the hell will we use this? Let's put it in there.
They listen to a guy who doesn't make speed controls, and they figure out how to meet him in the middle. Like, we make speed controls, we're going to do all the things that you want it to do, and that's kind of how this all works out. I think it feels like engineers trying to interpret what they need without the engineers ever actually going out and racing, if that makes any sense. Yeah, see, throat punch nose. Thanks, Jim. I was at a race one time, and Jim Hustins was there, and he was getting in an argument with his pit buddy and just threw all of his buddy's stuff on the floor of the track. It was awesome. So now his name is Throat Punch. Cool story.
He got throat punched?
He was about to punch the guy. If it wasn't early in the morning, he would have knocked him out. It was great.
Speaking of electronic aids, what electronic aid, since we're now speed control engineers, what are we missing in electronic aids?
Nothing. So a calibration process that can be done and troubleshoot everything that's wrong with your car and obsolete Charlie's tech support abilities.
Does anyone still do the automatic calibration? I know LRP had that or still has it for their sport control speed control. You just plug it in, and basically as soon as you started using the radio, it would learn it.
We have a couple like that in the super low line that have no calibration, and they self-adjust as you use them. So while it's on, if you turn the endpoint down and run it, it goes slower. But if you turn it off and on again, it'll readjust to that, and you'll lose that sort of thing.
I always thought, for me anyways, I found it easier to program a speed control when it required more than one press, because the big thing, of course, is one touch, which I think was Novak's term. But the idea that you press this button once and then you hold the trigger and wait for the LED to do stuff. I always like the Tekin way, where it's okay, I'm gonna the trigger's at neutral. I don't do anything. I press the button. I squeeze full throttle. I press the button. I hit full brake. I press the button, and then it's done. I don't have to look for things to happen or change.
I'm biased. I prefer the Novak way, but there's obvious reasons why I'm so biased. I used to work at Novak, in case you folks didn't know at home.
Yeah, and by the way, the difference between the easiest setup system and the next easiest is this much. I mean,
as long as they were the same. As long as they were the same steps, like neutral, full throttle, brake. It's when if they've tried to do something tricky, or it wasn't the natural thing, that's when it was dumb. I prefer.
How dare you stray?
I guess since I purchased Tekin, it was always that's the way I always looked to do it was. A neutral. I don't even know the thing now. Is it neutral?
No, all the modern day. I think everything's been neutral, throttled, and brake for anybody that's stuck around long enough. And
then I don't understand setting it at 120% endpoint, but whatever.
So I think it worked on like click for neutral, and then click for throttle, and then click for brake, and those were the pain.
No, that's no good. One each. But the reason that you would extend the throttle endpoints was to get more resolution from your throttle. So if you have 100 steps and now you have 120 steps, as you move the trigger, you have finer, grain basically. The problem came in is that people would calibrate it in 100% and then they turn it up to 100%, whatever, 20% afterwards. And all that really does is make your full throttle come in at 80% instead of 100%. So it feels different. It feels faster because you're like, oh, this feels like it's got more punch. Yeah, it does because your throttle's coming on early, stupid. So you calibrate with your endpoints max all the way out to get your maximum resolution from your radio system. That's a valid thing, pro tip.
But isn't that only if your radio made more steps?
All radios start at whatever they start at and go above that for whatever to be able to set travels. So none of their 100% is their actual 100%. They all have a little flow over, I guess. So crank it up and then calibrate it, and that usually works best. Get the most feel.
So I mean, maybe that was an issue back in like '85, but I feel like now there would be no difference. It's sort of like when Pete said, and I think most radios do this. You had the 50-50 throttle, and then for some reason they have the 70-30. And if you ever move that stupid switch while you've had a speed control programmed, it's the dumbest thing you ever did because then it takes off. I've never, ever, 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 ever in my life changed the throw from 50-50 to 70-30.
And the thing is, when you buy a high-end radio, which should give you more control, very often the brake side is it's like 2 millimeters, and shouldn't you want to have some control of your brake? It's just like bang bang because it's so short. But what do I know? Yeah, I like 50-50. I like having especially if you have a car with reverse, you want to have some movement to work with to operate the trigger.
Linearity. You want linearity is the term that I use. So sometimes the more steps you have, the more linear you can be. But the physical throw, let's say on your brake side, you set it to 150%. That small amount of range that you have in there will have a bunch of smaller steps. So may or may not help. I don't know.
Yeah. But you have to move your finger a much more fine amount compared to the throttle side.
Dude, I like that comparison to the thing. I use that a lot for motorcycle or drive frequency. On a speed control, when you raise or lower the drive frequency, it has a similar effect. Lower drive frequency feels a lot more punchy. You're not changing the power. You're just changing the pulses to the motor. Much like in a MotoGP, when you go from a 4-stroke to a 2-stroke, they change the pulses. So you get more or less traction that way. And that can affect not just the way the throttle responds, but what the car does. So thanks for bringing that up. I like that one.
I remember when the Pit Wizard first came out, going out to the parking lot with a car and turning the frequency way up and way down. And it was really incredible what a difference that made him feel.
Right.
Before that, you would just be like, oh, I heard this speed control, the brand X is really punchy, and the brand Y is much more smooth. And it was just decisions they made that you couldn't change. Right. And they wouldn't even talk about it. It's not like you would look at speed controls and they would say, well, this is our X kilohertz speed control, and the brand Y, and this manufacturer's is the lower kilohertz, so I'll buy that one because I like the punchy feel. You had no idea. It was just punchier. Something magical with the capacitors or whatever.
That was a conversation that I had with the engineers, actually asking them stuff about that, about the sports speed controls, about what speed controls we run at what frequencies for what reasons. And some of it comes down to what frequencies the speed controls can tolerate and price points and all that fun stuff. And what feel you're trying to get for that customer. Some people want max punch, so you run them at low frequencies.
Yeah. Honestly, what I would love is if more of the electronics that we use were actually analog. Still digital in terms of what's happening, inside them, but you control them in an analog way. Like if I could have a speed control that had a dial on it that was labeled punch with 5 settings, that'd be awesome. Click, click, click. Great. I don't want to go into any menus and, beep, 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 up in percentages. Just give me that big old knob.
It goes both ways, unfortunately. You can
the knobs take up spaces. That's the only thing.
Oh, no, I know. I get it.
They fail. Mechanical things in RC cars are bad news, unfortunately. They always end up failing over time. So you have
at this point, most of them are going to Bluetooth where you adjust it on your phone, and I'm fine with that. So you can have a big knob on your phone where you want to go.
Yeah. Ironically, like, the control system it simulates electronically is an analog one, of turning a knob. Everyone gets that. Or moving a slider, but same idea.
We're all about knobs.
Big knobs.
I think we've run out of topic with our turn this knob up. You suck. I mean, I don't have any more stories of traction control.
Well, do you remember?
Drag club, find a way to welcome people who are running the drag slash.
Or don't be scared of the
waves around.
What's this? Technology is your friend. Look at your smartphone and how much it's done for your life. Google Maps will tell you where you're supposed to be before you even know you're supposed to be there. Embrace the tech. But my thing was, though, it makes RC enjoyable for a much wider range of people. It's like e-bikes, in some regards. Like e-bikes have gotten a lot of people back outside doing things that were out of shape. They used to ride mountain bikes. Now, I'm very skewed to this. I have some friends that are in the bicycle industry, so I've heard all the tales of woe. But things that get people exposed to new things or whatever, like there's people that have never rode mountain bikes before that are out there on e-bikes right now. And this TSM stuff, like you're saying, lets you go buy that crazy car that you couldn't before and go have a very almost safe time with it in comparison. So I'm a big fan. Even more so, like radio's got the telemetry so that you can get all the temperatures and voltages and go push the limits of your RC car and save it before it catches on fire because your radio starts beeping at you.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff is very cool.
The ironic thing is if the latest McLaren had a sophisticated suspension linkage system where as traction decreased, the camber geometry would change because of the rising rate of the linkage. It was purely mechanical. Like people would be like, okay with that. That's pure. That's fine. That's good. But electronic stability, I'd turn that right off if I had that McLaren. You don't want to spin out your $250,000 car. Come on.
Most of the rules that affect the industry are the racing ones that in the end really don't matter for the mainstream and most people. They're the ones that stop development of stuff. So spin off to a rule how rules hurt the hobby, but they're trying to keep racing fair by limiting cost of something, which at this point I don't think any of this shit costs any more money to make. It's like saying designing an ugly car no, and then a good looking one, excuse me,
bless you,
yeah, and having a good looking one don't cost, it's not any cheaper. So these rules to like limit technology, like remember when we had nitro racing and using a two-way radio to talk to your pit guy was illegal? You'd rather have people yelling at each other at full volume during a race where you can't hear anything than people going, yeah, you got to pit the next 2 laps.
Why did that rule come along? I don't want to have to buy a two-way radio. I already spent so much racing.
$9,000 in RC cars and your $45 headset is going to make a difference.
That one, I almost quit RC when that started happening. I don't want to buy a radio. Get out of here.
Yeah. Or how about you just have a cell phone? Like, you can call, hey. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is the dumbest thing. And I remember being at a world's race where, sorry, Rick, he was at Orion at the time in Italy. I think you might have been there, Charlie. The big controversy was it was brushed and they were blowing motors up. And I think it was when they did a 10-turn limit on modified motors, and they were having trouble going 4 minutes. And so they wanted to change the rules. And I said, well, why would we change the rules? Because you can just run a motor that doesn't blow up and maybe win, right? And no, they wanted to change the rules because they couldn't keep their motor together. I don't remember if it was a turn. I think it was they wanted to change the rules from it was 10-turn limit, I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember a Worlds where there was a turn limit, but
yeah, it was in Italy. I was in Italy because I was listening to them complain, which was like,
why I can't remember what happened at that race, because that was the year I crashed 2 rental cars and blew another one up. There was so much things on
off-road. Well, it was on-road. It wasn't off-road. Off-road never really has an issue because there's not enough traction.
I didn't go to the on-road Worlds in Italy.
There you go.
Wasn't there.
So that was something that I remember people complaining that, let's change the rules because we don't want to put the motor in that lasts. And I said, this is what we're supposed to be doing here is your motor, if it wins the World, is supposed to tell me it's the best motor. So if everybody's blowing up and yours doesn't, that's the one I should buy. I think we're all forgetting why we're really here is to sell shit.
And
I didn't even sell this crap when I do it.
Theoretically, you would want, racing would be where better motors get developed because the rules say you have to make 4 minutes on a 10 turn, or better batteries get developed because you have to make the races are now 8 minutes long, not 4 minutes or whatever, and that would spur the technology. But in RC racing, it kind of goes the other way. It's like we have to figure out how to accommodate the latest technology that was invented not because racing exists, but because the technology was there and they want to put it in these cars.
The marketing in racing and the who's got the next best thing and all of that, all tied in with these rules that have been written for racing and shifted and massaged slowly over the years, for no particular reason sometimes, is kind of been one of the hindering factors. And these technology limitations is kind of right along those same lines. So.
Right. I won't mention that Novak did kind of force rules for them for quite a while, but
we made our own class, dog. We weren't trying to ruin all the other racing. We made our own class to prove a point, and everybody loved it so much it got adopted.
Hacker had a brush system before.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Sensorless. Yeah, I know. But it did run for like 40 minutes and never blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to sell that?
If all the manufacturers waited for a class to exist, whether it's a racing class or just a size category, that kind of thing, you wouldn't see any you'd have like 1/10 of the cool cars that we have now.
Yeah, for Nitro, when we had Brian Kinney doing our Nitro dyno, and he was developing a 4-stroke that revved to higher than the 10,000 that they did, and it would idle, and you didn't have all these problems, and he petitioned Roar to make it legal to race, and they're like, no, like you got to double the displacement, just like motocross did.
Like all other forms of motorsports have already done. There's
no advantage to it now. So open the rules so someone may come out with something that could be somewhat more exciting or at least spur development. Nope, sorry, I'm not doing that.
Leo, set your notifications to first notified, and you'll find us every week talking trash, getting wasted. Well, I get wasted. These guys.
I'm drinking a Coke Zero. I'll tell you.
If you want to subscribe to Facebook, or the magazine, there you just go to vrcmag.com. It's in the actual
setting. You drop that to notify me first, and then you'll get it. Whenever Derek posts something or Peter posts something or I comment on it, you'll know.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a little subscribe graphic for Facebook and other social media that will take you, or if you're on Instagram, link in bio, but will take you to the subscription page.
I think they're already on there, except for maybe not Instagram, but there is a link to buy everywhere on our thing. Subscribing to Facebook.
I said link to bio for Instagram. Link to biography, because you can't put hyperlinks in Instagram.
Because Derek doesn't have a link to buy anything.
I do, not the hat.
Beavis!
You got to search for it. It was in one of the chats one time.
That's how I got this hat.
I just want to have a better picture of the hat, so I don't have that yet. Anyway,
stuff and things.
What's this? There's no toys. These aren't toys. Justin, you're a little late. So Justin rides dirt bikes with 50cc motors or something.
Trials bikes. They're not dirt bikes.
Yeah. I don't care if you bought a high-end. I don't care if you bought the most high-end racing car. It's still a toy, a big boy's toy, and all that stuff. But the idea that ready to runs are some lesser than and never going to be as cool as, it's baloney. Come on.
I feel like this is Jeff with his alternative name.
No, Jeff is too busy being Canadian to participate.
Yeah, if anybody was wondering, I saw someone miss Jeff. Yeah, sorry, Jeff. I don't miss him anymore. He's.
You know what he does? He emails us and says, "Oh, I'll be there next week. I can't make it this week. Every week, I'll be there next week. I can't make it this week.
Free beer tomorrow." That's what he sends.
I'm sending the decals.
Yeah, mine were a year and a half.
I'm not Jeff. We hope not. We would feel bad for you if you were.
They would have kicked you out already. Anyway, this was a surprise show to me, to be honest with you, because I was actually going to come home and still work on this thing behind me. I got to find a receiver. It's nice moving because I have no idea where any of my stuff is, and I have to like dig through boxes to find stuff. For those who don't know, in the description to what you're watching, there are links to a free magazine download. There are links to use our affiliate link to AMain to where we make like 3 cents off your purchase where you're not paying us, but we're getting a commission.
AMain is like the Amazon of the RC internet, though. So that's a good place to go. They got everything.
Yeah.
They got stuff that you can't find on Amazon. I was just looking for some motors the other day. They had them all.
And then what else is in there? There's a link to to subscribe to the magazine. And then as always, click some sort of link like subscribe. Magazine's $10 for a year. I promise one is coming shortly. And then we will catch up faster because I'm working ahead now and not behind. And although I'm behind, that's it. And maybe we'll be here back next week. Can't promise you that.
And when you subscribe for $10, you get all the back issues.
Yeah, it's a lot.
If you buy the hat, you get all the back issues too.
Yeah, it's $30. It's expensive.
Derek has to ship the hat, so you make him leave the house, which is even better.
I leave the house, but then I have to go to the post office or the UPS. That's it. So we're done. And next week, if we're here, we're here. If we're not, we're not. But you can always leave a message. And if you're watching this on a rerun, watch them all. Let it play in the background.
Don't forget the thumbs up on the YouTubes.
Yeah, thumb up. You can thumb that. Again, I addressed this in my latest build video. There's someone that automatically dislikes it in the beginning, like in the first thing. So I know you subscribe to it because you're like the first one to dislike it. So I appreciate you, but come on,
dude,
bro.
I got one of those on the Hobby Wing channel too.
Yeah, I know.
Always dislikes every video.
Yeah,
I love it.
There's one competitor that is super angry. He's in some sort of network, but you like that. See you later.